Alright, hello guys, how's it going? In today's video, we're going to be talking about our winter thoughts. It's been about 2 months since I've made one of these videos actually, so I decided that today, since we have no new news in any of the ongoing weather events, that I wanted to go ahead and update you guys on a lot of the things that have to do with the upcoming winter. Now, let me tell you, there is a lot to go over. There has been some big changes, especially when it comes to the La Nina. We're going to talk about that a little bit later on and how it could be a neutral Enso. I've been saying this for months, but now it seems like pretty much everybody is on board with that idea. Now, before I get into the video, be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. For today's comment of the day, I want to know, what kind of Enso do you think we will be in? Do you think we will be in a La Nina, or do you think we will have a neutral Enso winter, or do you for some reason think there will be an El Nino this winter? Let me just tell you, there probably is not going to be an El Nino this winter, but if you think that, let me know in the comments down below because that'd be pretty interesting. Give some good reasons why, though. I'll probably need that. Anyway, I'll be picking one of those for tomorrow's video. Let's get straight into it, though. And first things first, we're taking a look at the global sea surface temperature anomalies. And we can see there's a warm blob up there in the North Pacific. We also see there are some cooler waters offshore of California, Washington, Oregon. You can hardly see that. And then even offshore of Canada and Alaska there. The Atlantic is overall mostly warmer than normal outside of the main development region right there offshore of Africa. That's the only big significant area of blue there in the North Atlantic. The Pacific is a lot cooler because we have that area offshore of the West Coast, like I said, but also our Enso right there is mostly blue as well, which is offshore of Central and South America. We can see a long area of colder than normal conditions, and especially as you head towards the South Pacific. I think mostly the southern hemisphere in general is below normal sea surface temperatures. If you kind of take a look, most of the blues are down there. Pretty interesting to see that happening. Here's the 7-day change. This just shows us what has changed over the past 7 days. And the Atlantic has done quite a bit of cooling. That just shows you how warm it has been, because even though it's done this amount of cooling, it's still warmer than normal there in the Atlantic there, regardless of how much it's cooled. The interesting thing, though, that I would really want to draw your attention to is south of Alaska there. If we take a look, we see a colder than normal conditions area there, kind of sitting right there in the middle, and then we see warmer than normal conditions horseshoeing around that. That could be our PDO trying to turn into more of a positive PDO. And usually the PDO directly influences the PNA. If you guys are familiar with the PNA, that's an area of warm air over the western areas in North America that usually leads towards colder than normal conditions in the eastern half of the country. And usually in a positive PNA, we see a lot of positive PNAs, which means a lot of cold air in the eastern United States. Now, what we're going to do in a moment is move on and take a look at the North Atlantic zoomed in and just kind of break that down. All right, and well, here we are zooming in. One area that's very important to note here is the East Coast being colder than normal from South Carolina all the way up towards the Mid-Atlantic. The interesting thing with this, and the important thing with this, is your waters directly influence your air temperatures, okay? So if you have warmer than normal water sitting there, it's really hard to get those below normal temperatures, air temperatures, to move over your region and really influence that air temperature, because it's battling that very warm water. Well, when it gets colder than normal like this, it makes it easier for colder air to move in and influence the coastal regions. So if we can stick and hold on to this colder water throughout the fall and winter months, it's going to make it easier for these East Coast regions to get those cold conditions, and therefore actually to get more snowfall as well. So that's going to be an interesting factor that not a lot of people think about, that could play a big role coming up in the fall and winter months. Now, south of Greenland, we have a lot of warm water setup that usually encourages a negative NAO, or North Atlantic oscillation. And when this is in its negative phase, we also see some colder air able to move in. So those are two of the things I'm noting here that are big factors. Here is our 7-day change, and you can see the East Coast has dramatically cooled over the past 7 days, and that is what has led to some of those below normal temperature anomalies there in the waters. Most of the warming has happened kind of to the east of Bermuda, I would say, which is, again, that kind of NAO region. So that is kind of a big factor moving forward. Here's our Nino 3.4 index chart. And as you can see, when it's in its positive phase, El Nino. When it's in its negative phase, La Nina. But if you take a look at the numbers on the very left, we can see that this is all within zero point 0.5 of either positive or negative on this Enso chart. That means that anywhere within here is a neutral Enso still, and obviously we've remained within this since early June. This is indicating to me that we are in an Enso that is neutral, and it's actually heading closer to that zero point 0.0 line as we speak right now. It stopped cooling. It seemed like we were really heading towards a La Nina there towards August, the middle portion of August into the late portion of August, but then it started to warm again, and now we're right back where we started at more of a neutral Ento. North Atlantic here has been dramatically warming over the past few months, and it just continues to warm. But that's not a huge factor moving forward. Obviously, we usually see the winds move from the west to the east. So that usually tells me, this is how I look at it at least, the Pacific influences the United States temperature patterns a lot more than the Atlantic does. First off, because we have the PDO and the ENSO out there. But second off, just because those water temperatures influence the air temperatures above them, and then those air temperatures move over the United States through the west coast. In the Atlantic, it's moving away from us towards Europe and Africa, so we don't get as much of a direct influence there. That's why, in California, Oregon, Washington, you see much more moderated temperatures out there. You notice that, it stays 70s most of the time, except for this summer where it got up into the hundreds, but that is a huge anomaly. But typically, you see very moderated temperatures within 50 to 80 degrees. Even areas that are as far north as New England, you notice Washington doesn't have winters quite like New England. Well, that's because the Pacific Ocean is, the air temperature that's right above that water is moving right over you and keeping those temperatures moderated. Because obviously, the Pacific isn't below freezing, otherwise, it would be frozen. Now, what we're going to do in a moment is move on and take a look at a lot more to do with the ENSO, and then we're going to take a look at the actual CFS temperature and precipitation forecast just to update you guys on that as well. Now, this is the biggest thing I wanted to talk about in this video, the Enso chart. Now, these models aren't really calling for a La Nina anymore. We see them getting right around that 0.5 line at the minimum, and that's only about half of them. The other half keep it much more neutral. So this is really geared more towards a neutral Enso. This is from August, and I'm sure the September update is going to look even more like a neutral Enso than this one. So I predicted, I'm going to say I'm pretty proud of this. A few months ago, I said, I think this could be a neutral Enso instead of a La Nina. I've been saying that for a few months. People in the comments, let me know if you remember me saying that. But I've really been feeling like a neutral Enso is very possible. And now these models and the Climate Prediction Center are starting to hop on board with that potential idea. So I'm very proud of that. It's exciting, too, because a neutral Enso usually means a snowier and colder winter for the central and eastern United States than a La Nina would be. I've always said a neutral Enso is the best Enso to have for a cold and snow lover here in the eastern or central United States. So it's only good news for those people that enjoy those things. Here's the early July official probabilistic outlook here from for the Enso here. And as you can see, we had about a 60 to 70% chance of a La Nina for November, December, January, and then December, January, February, we had about a 60% chance there. So they had pretty overwhelming probabilities that we would see a La Nina, and only about for the winter months, only about a 35% chance there of a neutral Enso, with maybe about a 5% chance of an El Nino. But let's take a look at the updated one here. Mid-August, take a look at this. December, January, February, neutral Enso is the gray bar, by the way, has now gone higher than the blue La Nina probability bar. So we see for December, January, February, indicated by the DJF down there at the bottom, right above the word season, we can see that it now has gone up to about 48% chance, whereas La Nina has now gone down to about a 43%. I'm just giving some estimates here, but it has overtaken the La Nina probabilities, and that only goes up towards January, February, March, as we get up to about a 55% chance of a neutral Enso. Then for February, March, April, we get up to a 65, and then in March, April, May, we get up to about a 70, lower 70s% chance. So it seems like the chance for a La Nina has significantly fallen, especially later into the winter and spring months. But not only that, the neutral Enso chance has significantly gone up. Notice that by the end of this, we see the El Nino probabilities overtaking the La Nina. That's usually because we don't usually see 3 La Ninas in a row. Usually you see 1 or 2 and then an El Nino. So we can expect for next year, I don't want to get into the 2022 to 2023 forecast, but we could be taking a look at an El Nino winter for the first time in a few years for the one after that. I will start talking about that winner next spring when we're able to take a look at things like Enso, some very long range things that aren't outlandish to talk about. We will begin talking about those things after this upcoming winter is said and done, but that's my initial Enso thoughts. Enso is the very first thing you can start talking about, and it is overwhelmingly likely that we see a neutral Enso or an El Nino for next year into the next winter, by the way. Here's the temperature forecast for December: torch, January torch, February torch, and then that brings the December, January, February forecast to a torch. This model's all over the place. It goes back and forth all the time. I'm not buying into this too much. Usually you don't see a west coast to east coast torch all the way across, so it's kind of an outlandish forecast here from this model. Precipitation forecast is a little bit more interesting. We see the entire west coast for December above normal precipitation, as well as the mid-Atlantic into New England. But then we move into a temperature pattern, or sorry, a precipitation pattern that I think is a lot more like my winter forecast, with the Northwest seeing above normal precipitation, and then a lot of the central regions like the plains and the Ohio Valley and the Great Lakes getting a lot of those greens. And February is even more validating to my forecast, I would say, with very dry in the southern United States. That includes the Southwest, the South Central, and the Southeast, with that above normal precipitation mostly for kind of like the South Central regions of the United States: Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, all the way up the Ohio Valley, the Northeast, and the Great Lakes. That looks a lot like my precipitation forecast. And here's the overall 3-month outlook, and this again looks a lot like my winter forecast. Very, very validating. Anyway, for today's confidence tab, we've moved up from a 2 to a 3 on these winter thoughts videos because we're drawing closer and closer. We're now to September, and confidence will only continue to increase as we head towards October and eventually November. Anyway, for today's comment of the day, I asked you guys, when do you think our next tropical storm will be? And James Marr said, I believe the next tropical storm will be late this week or early next week. It seems like we're in a bit of a quiet period, but we are approaching the peak of the hurricane season. So as soon as conditions become favorable, we can expect more tropical cyclones. Anyway, for today's patron highlight of the day, I want to thank you all for supporting the channel, but especially our platinum patrons: John Benbenick, James Wade, Dovey Nagel, Larry LePan, and Donna Carnes, alongside our diamond patrons: Bill Roberts, Marcus Connolly, Noah Harley, Michael Colessa, Catbite, Charles Dennett, Cindy Klein, Mark J, Luke Flego, Gary, John Calisi, Dwight Phelan, and Stephen Kernenthal. If you'd like to be a part of this very awesome Patreon page, very awesome patron entry of the day, you can do so by joining our very exciting Patreon page in the description and in the pinned comments down below. I would also like to thank our channel members: Weather Top Dogs, Hair Farms 1, Catbite, Stephen Fan, and Jeremy Cox. If you'd like to be a part of this, it'll be next to that subscribe button down below. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Be sure to smash that like button, leave a comment down below, and subscribe for more weather-related content. I will see you guys in the next video.